Number two, fellowships. Fellowship simply means participation. In other words, to share. So when you say we are partakers of the divine nature, it means we share in the divine nature. The Bible is talking about fellowship, and you are saying that there should be a businessman fellowship, and it's not what word fellowship in the Bible means. You are saying fellowship simply means conversation. Conversation with what? Conversation with who? Conversations are restricted. Our conversations are people specific. For instance, the things I will talk to you about is different from the things I will talk to this person about. So when you say that fellowship simply means conversations, it's not just conversations. It means people groups having interactions and participations. And every church, there are people groups. There are certain people in the church, no matter how we love people, we can't have 10 minutes conversations with them. There are many factors that can contribute to that. Number one is the subject of interest. But let me tell you, if girls gather, they will always have a subject of mutual interest. Even if you want to define fellowship as conversation, you realize that conversations are restricted based on who is talking to us. And I'm saying that the who, I am defining them. Business fellowship. Listen, anybody who is interested in business is interested in business discussions. Anybody who is interested in the ministry is interested in discussions on the ministry. So I have tried as much as possible to categorize the people groups that should be in the church based on the conversation they are likely to have, based on interest they are likely to share. And that is what is called fellowship. And the Bible says that in the early church there were fellowship. Okay, Pastor, tell us some of the fellowship. According to the Bible, there was the fellowship of the widows. Peter, who preached this sermon in Acts chapter 2 that we are reading, talked about the widows. In fact, there were a whole team that was set up to attend to only the widows. It happened in Acts chapter 6. In those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplying, there arose a complaint against the Hebrews and because their widows were neglected. They set up a whole department that people should be in charge of sharing things. You see, the early church had a culture of sharing things. That is why we see a lot of the distributing to the poor. They had all things in common. Actually, when the church began, Peter will receive offerings on his feet, and instead of using the offerings for the propagation of the gospel, he would distribute the offerings among themselves, among the people. In those distributions is what killed Ananias and Sapphira. They brought their offerings. Instead of the offerings to go to the whole world and make disciples of all nations, they were rather spending the offering. So the means, which are the resources for the advancement of the gospel, was curtailed. It was not being dispersed, and God killed Ananias and Sapphira, and the face of the church changed. Now in the book of Acts, still they were sharing things. Not that it is bad to share things, but the gospel does not exist by sharing things. It exists by preaching and converting of sinners. And the primary reason for which the church was established was neglected, to the point that Peter and the apostles started joining in the sharing process, because to them Jesus saved them, and they must also serve others as a proof of their following of the doctrine of Christ. Then one day Peter realized that this thing is becoming too much. From today, we will not neglect preaching the word to serve tables. So what will we do? Let us appoint some people who will be in charge of sharing the food. So if nothing at all, we saw that there were fellows of widows. So in the early church, there was a culture of fellowship, groups of people in the church, and the church grows by small groups. And what I'm saying is that if you don't break the whole concept into pieces or into its minute form, you will just say that fellowship means conversation. Conversation of what? It's not just conversation. In the early church, there was the fellows of the apostles. There was even a council of the apostles. They were sitting in Jerusalem. Peter was the head. So rather than saying apostolic council, we simply say pastors' fellowship. These small groups have to exist in the church, and they keep changing. Change them to suit the present stature of the church. Listen, if certain fellowships do not exist, it will be shown in the strength of the church. So you as the pastor, you have an assignment, and the assignment is that try to identify people in the church and help them to belong to groups in the church. And we must have a very broad spectrum of fellowships. Plenty.